All right, so we're going to kind of get into your career a little bit. Give me an example of what you would consider one of your funniest calls, or the ones that kind of stand out in your mind.
I was thinking about this when you sent me this list. I can't really think of a funny call.
Okay.
And it's not that they're not that some calls aren't funny. It's just, it's almost like a humor thing. Like, do I find it funny? Maybe. Do other people find it funny? No.
Well, and that's kind of what we're trying to talk about is, the sense of humor that you and I have, and, our brothers and sisters in the service, our sense of humor is just a little bit different than what we would consider lay people. We use humor as a, defense mechanism to protect ourselves. So, I've had it asked to me, what's one of the worst calls or, you've had? And my experience of worst call is much different than what a lay person would consider. The way you and I communicate together is going to be different than me communicating with someone that's not in the service. Is that correct? Do you find the same thing?
Yeah, I try to talk to my wife about some of these things, or even being with me for years and knowing the fire service from either hanging out at the firehouse with me or just from hearing stories back and forth. She still doesn't find something funny, and I'm like, the guys at the station love this. Like, it's hilarious.
Right. All right, well, let's move on to the next one. It's a challenging service that we're in. We see people at their best times, and most of the time we get called out at their worst times. So what would be a call that you would say was one of your toughest, whether it's emotionally or physically, whether it's a bad fire that, it was physically demanding or something that really touched home to you? Could you give me an example of maybe one of those calls?
Right. Okay. So I had a fire probably within those first 3 years. I don't think I was a driver yet, and I became a driver pretty quickly. But within the first 2 years, we'll say, I was actually on a call. It was from Downingtown. We were responding to a mutual aid call, and we ended up being first due there. We were the first engine on scene. We arrived to the front of this townhouse. I stretched the line. I believe I was on the nozzle. If not, I was the backup person. I ran up to the front door. I had the set of irons, Halligan bar, and an axe. I grabbed the front door open, pulled the screen door open. There's smoke pushing out of this, so we believed we had a working fire. I used the Halligan to pop the door open. Smoke comes billowing out all the way down to the floor, deep, dark smoke. At that time, I didn't know much about smoke. I wasn't into the art of reading smoke. I was fresh. I'm sure nothing was going right, but I got that door open and I was happy about that. So I must have been the backup person because I forced the door. So the lineman comes up, they go inside, they're searching for the fire. The lieutenant or whoever the officer went in front of them to try and locate the fire with a thermal imaging camera. We found out it was a basement fire. So I'm gonna say this is roughly 10 years ago. This is not necessarily the way we might have fought a fire today. Had it been a basement fire today, we probably would have gone around back.
Okay.
Because it was a walkout basement, and fought it from there.
We always live and learn, so that's part of what we're doing is talking about how things change. So, all right, so basement fire.
So they progress in, and I'm using the hose line to keep my bearings. It's a small townhouse. I'm starting to feel around, and I grabbed what I believe was a dog. So this is what hit home for me. I've had animals, and at this particular fire, we lost, I think, 3 animals.
Wow.
At this fire. I think it was 2 cats and a dog. And that hit home for me. That was the first time that I really, I'm young. I'm 19, 20 years old at this point. Death isn't really in my life all that much. Maybe an older family member, but something that hit home for me was there's going to be calls where people, especially kids and animals, they are unable to fend for themselves. So that's always been something that's hit home for me is when you go to one of these calls and there's nobody home, who's going to let the animals out?
Right.
So that call was a little bit rough for me. It stuck with me probably for, a few months. Was a little bit rough. The resources weren't there as they are today, with CISM and whatnot. I was able to figure out my own ways of getting through it, and I've learned from that. That's the biggest thing, like you were saying, is learning. There are certain outlets that we all like to use in the fire service. I prefer working out, training hard, getting right back into it, doing a project around the house, or just spending time with the family. But I'll throw a little tidbit in there. There's a suicide hotline out there for firefighters. If anybody feels that they are having a tough time or need to talk to somebody, call that hotline. Make sure you get help. So mental health is a huge thing for all healthcare workers, especially firefighters, police officers, military.
Right. And I think you make a good point. The things that hit us are going to be different from every person. I have animals too, but I've always viewed them as animals. So when an animal would go down, my concern has always been humans. But that doesn't mean you are less affected because it affected you as for an animal versus me as a human, kind of thing. So, those kind of things are very important to talk about, that everybody has their own thing that's going to hit them close. One of the times I had was, the kids hit me because I have kids. Those that don't have kids may not hit them as closely yet, kind of thing. So, nice. All right, so let's bring you up to what was one of your most rewarding kind of calls. One of the things that you took away, either emotionally, physically, or you came out of that going, yeah, that was pretty good.
This one also is probably one of my most traumatizing calls.
Okay.
So we had an OB call. We were called out. I actually was woken up by my partner. I was working on an ambulance, and I was woken up by my partner maybe at midnight. And this was a little out of the ordinary because the pager didn't go off, the house tones didn't go off. He had said, hey, the boss called. We need to do emergency transport from a hospital to hospital. And I was like, I've never done one of these before. I'm like, what are we doing? Which has become a little bit more popular today, that we use the 911 ambulances versus using like a third-party provider.
Right.
So we arrived to the local hospital. It was a non-OB hospital, so they didn't really have the facilities to deliver a baby. This local resident came into the hospital. This was, I believe, her fourth child. Her water had not broken, and she was non-English speaking, so that
makes it tough. Yeah.
Created a problem. Luckily, there was a medic there at the hospital, said, hey, you know what? You mind if I go along with you? I'm the driver of the ambulance. I will put out in this story, which I give credit to everybody. Everybody that was on this call was phenomenal. We begin the transport. He jumps on with us. It's about a 30-minute transport to the next hospital. And about midway through, I hear some commotion in the back. At this point, the medic is yelling, hey, you need to pull over and get back here. I open up the back doors, jump in, and unfortunately, it is a breech delivery. Water broke. Luckily, everybody was paying attention to the patient, and we were unable to communicate with her, but by her facial expressions, from what I understood, we were able to understand that, hey, there's something going on. So we have a breech delivery. The baby is stuck at this point. So now everything's starting to progress a little bit worse.
Yeah.
So we attempted to deliver the baby at this point. Baby is not coming out. And from the position that I was in, it was the medic had conveyed to me, hey, we need to get her to the hospital. So we start transporting. He requested a second medic to come assist with us because we need more hands. I'd say a third of the way from the hospital, the other medic met us because of the area that we're in. Chester County has a lot of the chase car medics, or the medic units are just like SUVs.
Yep.
They were able to meet us. At this point, from what I understood, the baby was actually halfway delivered, which, as you know, is a problem as soon as the chest comes out, because now the baby wants to breathe. On the rest of the commute to the hospital, the baby was delivered. The baby was in cardiac arrest. They worked the baby. We arrived to the hospital. I had radioed ahead of time to have them prepared for us. And then I believe the mom wasn't doing well at this point either. So both of them were in critical condition. We arrived to the hospital and we passed them off. That was probably one of the most traumatizing things.
Yeah, yeah.
Being in that situation, we were typically, when you go to a call, you kind of know what's going on. This started out just a little bit different, and then it just progressively got worse.
How did this become rewarding for you?
So rewarding was knowing that we later found out the baby and the mother were just fine. Everything was okay. We were also, there was, of course, we like to acknowledge all of our providers, and we were put up for recognition with that. So we all received birth in the field medals, and then I think it was a clinical excellence.
Okay. Yeah.
It was above and beyond call. I'm not an awards person. I certainly, that I didn't necessarily want an award for that or anything. I think it's great that we award all of our people who go above and beyond, but that call will always forever be with me.
Have you had an opportunity to talk to him after the call at all?
So unfortunately, I did not.
Okay.
I would have loved to seen the mother, the baby, but hearing through the grapevine, I did get a report back that everybody was doing fine. They were discharged from the hospital. Everybody was doing good. And for me, that was what I was there to do.
Right.
I was there to make sure, as my role as the driver, I was there to make sure everybody got there safe. It was little after midnight. We were on some dark back roads. It was also it was around rut season. So there was deer everywhere. Every turn I was dodging deer.
Welcome to Eastern Pennsylvania during rut season.
Yeah, it was a little bit crazy, which just added more stress to the situation. But, the most important part, and we all train on this, it's stay calm, getting excited, and only makes things worse. So
good. It sounds like a good call to learn from, a good call that you did, and those are ones you come back from and you keep those. Those are the good things you put in your pocket. And I try to weigh, the good ones and the bad ones, and I try to always have more good ones than bad.
Yes. Yeah. There's always room to learn.
What is one thing that you wish the public would know about your service and what we do?
I think the one thing that the public should know about what we do is it's a support of the community. That we're not just there to run calls, but we're also out there at birthday parties. We stop out at block parties. We stop out at community events. And a lot of times we're out there protecting people when they don't even know what's going on. A downed tree goes down. In Chester County, we have fire police. A lot of times fire police will go out there and put up barricades, which is another good thing to bring up, especially in rainy season. Please don't go around barricades. Do not drive through water. That's one thing that we've kind of struggled with.
Yeah. We don't like rules.
Right. Who likes rules? One thing I love about the fire service, truthfully, it's the camaraderie. It's a brotherhood. It is brother sisterhood. It is just that we're a family. I walk into these firehouses, especially being a junior member, so I float around firehouse to firehouse depending on where I'm needed. I literally walk into a firehouse. I've never met some of these people, and we're going to have a conversation. I'm going to talk to somebody on this shift or at this firehouse about something. And it is just, it's one of those things that you can't really find anywhere else. People in the fire service go out of their way to do so many things, whether it's volunteering, taking the training. I don't know any other profession out there that somebody's willing to give all that time and effort for free. And even on the career side, there are people who just, they will go out there, and there's nowhere, I truly believe that there's no other career in the world that people will do so much for nothing.